Can a minister marry two people who are living together? Just living together. There are so many people who attend churches today who fall into this category. They're living together outside of marriage. And let me just categorically say right up front, if you fall into that category, you're living in sin. God does not allow people to live and cohabit and give the impression of being joined fitly together as a male and a female, what we would call the marriage, without the benefit of the legal process of marriage. That's a sin before God. Can a minister marry certain types of people? If the two people, and let me say right here that you see people marrying female to female and male to male today, that's a travesty against God. You see so-called ministers marrying sodomites to each other. That's a travesty against God, and it's a detriment to the body of Christ and an insult to God. So a minister has to address these things. He can't partake of a person's sin. So if the two people are non-Christians and the pastor, after he counsels these people, he determines where they are spiritually, saved or unsaved, and that they're comparable in that area. And if he evaluates the fact that they are addressing their commitment to one another totally, and they're willing to live with that, then the pastor can marry those people. But it takes a lot of consideration on the pastor's part to do that, to marry two unsaved people. If the couple are Christians, then the pastor again would counsel these people on the biblical meaning of marriage and commitment. And once he's determined that they're mature enough and can handle that, then of course he can marry those people. If you have Christians who are living together but they're not married and they want to get married, the first thing that pastor would have to insist upon is that these two would cease and desist from that living arrangement. The one has to move out. If the female is in the male's home, then she must leave while they continue their relationship. If the male is in the female's home, he would have to leave while they continue the relationship and the counseling process. And when the pastor then, after much counseling and much coming to grips on the people's part with their responsibility and what God demands and what is scripturally true, once the pastor determines that they have met these requirements, then he can marry these two people, and then they can go on as a Christian couple. A pastor may never, let me emphasize, a pastor may never marry a believer to a non-believer. I don't care how sweet the non-believer is, he must never do that. That is a sin against God, and God cannot and will not bless that union. He will unite the two, but he will not bless that union. So that's a very ticklish subject, and probably a number of you who are watching now fall into that category, and you may be thinking about turning off the program and moving on, but something was just forcing you to stay in there. We're dealing with your eternal soul. We're dealing with your earthly happiness. We're dealing with the propagation of your faith and of your lineage in a healthy way. We're talking about adhering to the laws of the land. So God has a hard word about adultery and fornication. Adultery being a person who's married dealing with an unmarried situation. There are people who are not married dealing with a sexual situation. So God's very hard on that, and we ministers ought to be more hard on it too. If we were, we wouldn't see so much as we see on TV with all these type of unions that we see there that are a travesty against God.